You ready? All right. Well, good morning. Welcome to the last Board of Supervisors meeting of 2019.
Promise?
Going to schedule a special one just for you. I want to thank you all for coming this morning, and if I don't get the chance later, I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We're going to begin this board meeting, as we do all of our board meetings, with our Pledge of Allegiance to our flag, and ask County Council if she'll lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we will move forward with our consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent calendar any board members would like removed for discussion? All right, seeing none, any members of the public have anything on consent they would like removed for discussion? Good morning, sir. Which item is it you'd like removed?
Morning, Supervisors. Item 10A, a Development Impact Fee Annual Report.
Item 10A. Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else have sir, you can go ahead and have a seat real quick. Any other items anybody else would like removed for discussion? All right, seeing none, we're asked to consider the consent calendar absent item 10A. What's the pleasure of the board?
Second.
We have a motion, Holmes, and a second, Wygant. Roll call, please.
Gore? Wygant?
Yes.
Holmes? Gustafson? Euler?
Aye. All right, we will go ahead and take item 10A. Is there staff prepared to present on that item?
Yes. Good morning, Chair Euler, members of the board. Matt Levesque, Management Analyst in the County Executive Office. We were actually planning to pull this item off consent as well. There are two corrections I wanted to bring to the board's attention.
Okay.
The first correction is on page 515 of the agenda packet, and that's page 6 of the report itself.
Okay.
And the correction is with respect to the city-county traffic fee program. There's, on the second paragraph within that section, there are two numbers I'd like to correct.
Okay.
The first number should read $1,599,426.
I'm sorry, which paragraph are we in? Let's drill this down.
On the city-county traffic fee program section, the second paragraph.
Second paragraph within that section?
Within that section, yes.
Okay. So the number currently reads what?
$8 million.
Okay, all right, so that's the number we're changing, is the $8,999,470?
Correct.
Okay, and we're changing that to what?
$1,599,000 or $599,426.
Okay.
And then the following sentence reads $18,664,917.
Mm-hmm.
And that number should read $2,131,538.
Okay, obviously a bit of a disparity.
Darn, I was
So-
to utilize those dollars for a couple of projects in my district.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
That'd be a big bridge, right, in Willarga. The second correction I'd like to point out, there was a table omitted from the report. Copies of that table have been provided to the clerk of the board. That table would normally fall between pages 547 and 548 of your agenda packet.
Okay, is this the Real Vineyard Specific
Correct.
Area Fee Program, that table?
Correct.
And that would be inserted where, I'm sorry?
Within the agenda packet, it would be inserted within between tables 547 and 548.
Okay. All right, so after the Dry Creek, Placer West Sunset, and before Supplemental County Facilities Plan Area Fee Component?
Correct.
Okay, great. All right, any other changes?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Why don't you just give a brief overview of the item now that you've given the specifics? What is the item the board is being asked to consider?
So this is an annual requirement under state law. Jurisdictions are required to report the balance and purpose and use of impact fees for the previous fiscal year, and that report needs to be approved by the end of the calendar year. So under state law, the report would need to be approved by December 31st, 2019.
So we're not going to do it at the supplemental meeting Supervisor Holmes requested?
That's under your purview.
Do it at this one? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. And with that, we will go ahead and ask if there are any board members have any questions or comments on this item. And seeing none, any members of the public want to address this item?
Morning, Mike Garabedian for Placer County tomorrow, and glad to see that the county and I agree on this, pulling this off the agenda. Two questions, basically. The general question is: Are the items listed in here, for instance, on page 49 and so forth, are those already spent and allocated, or have they yet to be allocated? That's the.
You say page 49. Do you want to make a specific reference whether that is?
549.
Oh, 549. Thank you.
It's called Development Fee Impact Project Identification as of June 2019.
Okay.
For example, there's a allocation for the Hidden Falls Park of certain.
Mm-hmm.
Are those already made, or have they yet to be made? And I guess that's a general question.
And what is your second question?
The county, this board engages in fee waivers of some development fees, and I wonder if the fees in this report are part of the fee waiver process.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll ask staff if staff is prepared to answer those questions.
So I believe the project identifier, where the question was brought up, is really the project identification section of the report, and that is really just an outlook on how we propose to spend the fees. Some of them have been spent, some have not. It's just hard to tell. I don't have the actual project in front of me, so
Yeah, and
it's a little bit of both.
Okay. And then in terms of the quote-unquote fee waivers that he is asking about in terms of what's been granted?
I don't have any information on that, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board? We have a motion, Gustafson, second Wygant. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on to public comment for items not on the consent agenda. This is the opportunity for any member of the public to address the board on any item that is not on our agenda today, knowing that the board cannot take action on the items raised under public comment. Is there anybody who wants to address the board? If so, if you would please identify yourself and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Good morning.
Good morning, Betsy Bender, District 5.
You got the red memo.
I did. I was going to comment on that, ladies. I'm on the wrong side of the table.
Yeah.
Just real quick, what I wanted to speak on, and I had my whole thing written down, is back at the seat because I got an update. So all I want to say is that we are concerned about the Supreme Court not even hearing the Ninth Circuit ruling on the Idaho homeless case. And so we are concerned that we are going to continue to have an increase of homeless folks on our streets, in our neighborhoods, leaving trash, etc. I want to also say that in consideration of that for the record, TGI continues to do an outstanding job. The citizens of the area are really happy with TGI and the program that they're leading. However, the homeless tend to congregate there. TGI is doing what they can do. I understand that there may be some new lighting put in the area that might help that situation, which is great, but I urge you to continue to be as proactive as we can as a county to put things in place to discourage the homeless from coming to Placer in the first place and staying here for as long as they want with our support. So just want to ask for your assistance in working with Jeff Brown and others to really create a plan, a strategic plan on how to handle the homeless going forward. Ongoing issue, it's kind of like risen again. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, when you say TGI, you mean the Gathering Inn, for those who might not have completed their year-end giving. All right, anybody else? Any other members of the public? Well, since Keith's here, I had to throw that in. Any other members of the public want to address the board under public comment? All right, seeing none, we will go ahead and bring it to the board for board member and CEO. I want to start with Todd. Todd has something he wants to share with us.
Yeah, board, one of the things that happened, and as of a week ago today, we had a really serious and unfortunate, really tragic incident that took place at the Auburn Library. We had 3 patrons at the library that sustained stabbing, had a stabbing that took place at the library. And I think these are, unfortunately times that we're dealing with, but these victims, 2 of which were sent to the hospital, another was treated and released. Obviously, fortunately, our employees weren't impacted, but they were impacted being at the library themselves. And I think one of the things that we did as a result of that is we provided some grief counseling to our employees and to staff members that felt kind of the impact of that traumatic event. And that also included a closure of the library on Wednesday to kind of address that and some of the other needs within the building prior to opening on Thursday morning. Supervisor Holmes and myself came over. I know we had some other supervisors that came to the library, and those others expressed support for our employees. And I just wanted to say this one because we're just in interesting times, as a society, and that means we need to be diligent about our security. And I think as we deal with openness of the services that we provide, we also want to make sure that security is of ultimate importance here. And that's we want to be diligent about that. We're going to be having a kind of debrief tomorrow at the City Hall with our partners, the Auburn Police Department, our Sheriff's Office, CAL FIRE, our probation department. We had a number of resources that came and supported this effort on Tuesday afternoon. I want to just give my thanks and support to that as well, to kind of coming together. And then, just lastly, the community's been really exceptional. I know when we opened the library, we had a number of people that came in on that Thursday, and even on Saturday, we had a really good outreach event. Over 100 community members actually came and have sent cards and get well and greetings. And I think it's just a testament to the value that we have for libraries and kind of these community gathering places. So I just wanted to share that with you. I know many of you know kind of some of the things that took place. Unfortunately, it was when we were having our board meeting. So it was a pretty active Tuesday, and one that we hope doesn't happen anytime in the near future. Mary and Sophie are here. Mary George, our library director, is here. I don't know if she wants to say anything, and I would turn it over to any board members that may have any thoughts that they'd like to share as well.
Okay, Mary, did you want to? Good morning.
Good morning. Very surreal for us. Dealing with this trauma is not easy. Thank you for your kindness and your words and for your support. I hope for 3 things this holiday season. One is that my staff finds comfort in all the training and trauma recovery that is offered by the county. 2, of course, that all the victims recover fully and find it in their hearts to be able to come back to their public library. And 3, that as we work through this next budget cycle, that you all take into consideration very seriously the added resources that your public libraries may need, including staffing that will keep us open and safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary, for your leadership. I know that these are the kinds of things you hope never happen, but you got to plan for the eventuality. Thank you for your direction and leadership to staff in planning, and want to recognize the role the Sheriff's Department played over there and over here as we were conducting a very long public hearing on the Plaza Ranch project in Sunset Industrial Area. This was going on right over there, and I started getting text updates as to why there were multiple sheriff's deputies wandering through our building when the suspect left the library and his whereabouts couldn't be accounted. This was obviously a concern for a number of members of the public that had assembled here to hear that particular project. So a lot of folks did their jobs and did them well in order to minimize the damage. But thank you for, again, your ongoing leadership within your department. Any other board members? All right. Yes, Bonnie?
So, moving on, yes?
Yeah, no,
Very
go
good.
ahead.
Move on.
Yes.
So I wanted to say thank you to one of our staff members who has been working with us and our county for 9 years, and she is moving off to Idaho, she and her family, for a new opportunity. So Adrienne Barber is sitting up here up front, and Adrienne has worked with the county since 2010, and she's served in the elections department, admin services, health and human services, the CEO's office, and most recently the board's office. And she has personally supported me this last year as I have been new to the county and just done a fabulous job. She just got a promotion, and then unfortunately her family decided that it was time for them to move for another opportunity. So I just want to say thank you to Adrienne. She served our entire board very well, and we wish you all the best. Thanks, Adrienne.
Good luck, Adrienne.
Thank you, Adrienne.
That's great. All right, any other board member reports?
Kirk, I have.
Yes, Cindy?
I have a few. Yesterday, I wanted to commend county staff. Yesterday, we pulled together a ribbon cutting at the new State Route 89 alignment down the West Shore to celebrate the opening of the 2 roundabouts and the new section of State Route 89 that'll provide not only better traffic and congestion relief, but also safety and potential evacuation, a secondary access from the West Shore. Well-attended event at 9 degrees or 19 degrees, depending on which thermometer you were looking at in the morning, and cold metal seats. Other than that, we had coverage from Reno News, and Sacramento News did mention it. I don't know what else, but PIO's office did a great job, as well as county staff, DPW, IT, and really a great turnout from the community, the federal government representatives who oversaw that project, as well as TRPA and the Tahoe Transportation District, Placer County, and the Public Utility District officials were all there. So good turnout and nice ribbon cutting, and they let me actually do the honors with the new scissors that you should definitely not run with those scissors. They are sharp. They are very sharp. And then also I wanted to let you know, last week I had a couple of other meetings for the California Tahoe Conservancy, and they're looking at their asset lands and wanting to work with the county, and so we'll be working with county staff, Jennifer Merchant and Aaron Casey, to talk about those facilities, their lands that they want to make available to potential housing projects, or to help implement our town center area plan mission. And the third one was I attended the Tahoe Transportation District workshop on Friday, and that board that I also have the privilege of serving on is just wrapping up a report from a consultant on looking at how to raise revenue to implement further transportation solutions, one of which, and probably the recommendation will be, and I don't know the appropriate term, Jennifer probably can help me, but cordon pricing or entry fee pricing. And so it's going to be quite controversial. And as a way to generate revenue from the visitors that enter the basin, and how we then can provide transportation. So I think it'll be very controversial with our business community and other members of the community, and I just wanted to give you a heads up that's coming, and I'll keep you abreast of that. We're hoping to have a recommendation from them and a final recommendation in January. It would take special legislation to do that, and where they would actually collect those fees and how those fees would be collected and how much is going to be very controversial. So I'll make sure I keep the board informed on that.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Holmes.
Well, I want to thank Supervisor Gustafson for providing the bridge to my comments. 2 weeks ago, we were able to, I had a ribbon cutting and opening of the Penman Road from Interstate 80 over to King Road. It was in the disrepair and closed for several months. So that is working really well, really nice bridge. And then just last week, we had a ribbon cutting as well for the Gold Hill Road Bridge that is really a nice bridge, very aesthetic. They did a lot of environmental work down in the Auburn Ravine to make sure there wasn't any runoff. I gave a shout out to Sarsis, Save Auburn Ravine, Steelhead, and Salmon, and Jack Sanchez for their cooperation with that to make sure that it was environmentally sound. So it's you should drive out there. It's really a nice bridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd, you had something?
Yeah, and I just had two other items under Steve Pedretti, our Community Development Resources Director, is here to talk through. One item that you took action on our last meeting, the other is just an update on housing, and maybe we'll start with the generator fee discussion, and then Karen, you may have some thoughts before we talk about housing.
Okay, Steve Pedretti, Community Development Director. First, on the generator fee waiver, if you recall, 2 weeks ago your board approved waiving the fees. We have had several requests for refunds of those folks who have already submitted theirs. We did research since the first PSPS event. There have been 86 of these generators, totaling about $20,000. And so with the $4 million in building permit fees and, of course, the general fund amount that the board provides, that we can handle that amount. It's whether or not we actually want to do that. So we'll be bringing that for consideration at some point to see what level and how we might want to implement that. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. Also, with all the state laws that were approved and I think were signed in October by the governor, there are a number of things that go into effect January 1st. We are, I don't want to say scrambling, but we are scrambling to try to pull all that together like every other jurisdiction. There are a number of things in permit streamlining, website information. We have to put fees and other information on the websites by January 1st. So we're doing that, trying to do that in the most coherent manner that we can. It will get better over time. Also, fees for accessory dwelling units. There are some exemptions for certain fees for accessory dwelling units that have an area of less than 750 square feet. There is also a requirement to create a proportional fee above 750 feet compared to the primary dwelling unit's square footage. It's kind of screwy the way they do it. We'll adjust as best we can. But I want to let you know because we have not processed, obviously, any kind of a fee adjustment. We'll bring that to the board January 14th, but we have to start implementing that based on the state law on January 2nd. So just a heads up on that.
Great. Thank you. And then
just to clarify on what Steve pointed out a second ago, the legislature was incredibly busy this year, and if we thought we were going to be bored next year, no. There are 3 Senate bills that deal with the accessory dwelling units as well as junior accessory dwelling units. It's SB 13 and AB 68 and 1486. And as Steve mentioned, the major change besides what will be a long list of changes in our zoning text will be regarding fees collected. And under 750 square feet, basically the legislature has deemed these to be exempt from any development impact fees. Over 750 square feet, the fee must be charged that's proportional to the size of the primary dwelling unit. So yeah, it's a challenge. We are bringing, obviously because it's state law, we will have to start implementing that on January the 2nd, but there will be an ordinance coming forward to take care of these particular fees and the fee formulas come January 14th. Obviously those won't be in effect for 60 days because it's a fee. However, we will be proceeding on the basis of what the state law requires, then codifying it, as well as codifying everything else that the legislature edicted for us.
So to clarify, they tied the fee that can be charged not to the impact of the second unit, but to the size of the primary.
Correct.
Because 1,000 square foot unit built adjacent to a 2,000 square foot home has a different impact than 1,000 square foot unit built adjacent to a 4,000 square foot home?
That is what the legislature has decided.
Okay.
I won't comment on the merit of that, but that is what we have in front of us.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments under the topic of board member and county executive reports? Supervisor Gustafson?
This is real quick. Another kudos. I forgot to mention that throughout the community of Tahoe and the state and federal representatives I encountered yesterday, as well as all around the community, there is such gratitude for the free tart service. Commendations from our regional planners, our state and federal partners, that offering that free service puts Placer ahead of anyone else in the basin. And so just wanted to let you know that. Thanks for your support on that.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing none other, our board doesn't do this very often, but we are going to quickly adjourn to closed session to take up one closed session item and then come right back. When we come back, I want to take the 9:30 timed item when we come back because we will be at that time, and then we'll go back for the 9:10 timed item. But I want to take the 9:30 pace item when we come back. So the closed session item.
The board will now adjourn to closed session to consider what item of existing litigation.
All right, we'll be right back. It won't take long, I promise you. Sorry, it took a little longer than I anticipated. That's what happens when you have conference with attorneys.
On that happy little note, as a report out of closed session, the board met in closed session to consider one item of existing litigation. That would be concerned citizens for community and public lands versus County of Placer. The board heard a report, and no direction was requested or provided. That concludes report out of this portion of closed session.
All right, thank you. So as I indicated before going into closed session, when we came back, we're going to take the 9:30 timed item. So at this time, staff's prepared to move forward with that item. I don't know why I'm not hearing you through that microphone. I've got it turned on.
Hello?
There you go. Now you're
Hey, there we go.
All right, now you're live.
Good morning, Chair Euler, members of the board. I'm Matt Levesque, Management Analyst with the County Executive Office. The item before your board this morning is a presentation regarding property assessed clean energy programs, commonly referred to as PACE programs, and to conduct a public hearing to consider adopting resolutions to opt into one or more PACE programs. I'd like to share with the board that a copy of the staff report was provided to interested stakeholders in advance of today's board meeting. More specifically, the action being requested of you today is to receive a presentation regarding PACE programs and to conduct a public hearing to consider adopting resolutions to participate in as many as 5 statewide PACE programs. The section action requested is to authorize the county executive officer or designee to take such actions as are necessary to implement any adopted resolutions, including execution of any agreements identified in adopted resolutions. Additionally, should your board take action today, staff would return to the board in January with cleanup actions, such as a revision to Resolution 2015-247, which gave exclusive rights to Empower. PACE financing was approved by the state legislature in 2008. It allows property owners to enter into either voluntary contractual assessments or a special tax to finance energy efficiency and other improvements on residential and commercial structures. PACE financing is currently available in as many as 20 states, 3 of which allow residential PACE financing in addition to commercial. 2 governments in California administer their own PACE programs, while other local jurisdictions have done so by joining a joint powers authority that contracts with 1 or more third-party administrators to carry out their programs. As of January 1st, 2019, PACE program administrators must be licensed by the California Department of Business Oversight. Program administrators authorize solicitor agents, which are typically licensed contractors, who can offer PACE financing to prospective clients. An example of PACE financing terms include the following: interest rates between 6.5% and 8.5%, no down payment required, all owners of record must sign off on the loan, the improvement must be must be permanently fixed to the property, and the financing term equal to the useful life of the improvement. The financed amount is capped at 15% of the property value. In total, property tax assessments cannot exceed 5% of the assessed value once encumbered with a PACE lien. Some examples of improvements that are eligible for PACE financing include energy efficiency improvements such as HVAC, air sealing, or insulation, renewable energy such as rooftop solar or electric vehicle charging stations, water efficiency improvements such as high efficiency faucets or plumbing system repairs, seismic improvements such as standby generators or foundation strengthening, and fire resiliency improvements such as the installation of fire-resistant materials or fire sprinklers. In order to allow for PACE financing for fire resiliency improvements, some additional board action would need to be taken. If that is something your board is interested in pursuing, staff would return to the board at a later date with those necessary actions. Because PACE liens are affixed to the property tax roll, they have first position over a mortgage. As a result of this structure, the Federal Housing Finance Agency prohibits Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac from purchasing mortgages for either home sales or refinancings that are encumbered with PACE liens. In effect, this generally means that the property owner is responsible for paying off the PACE lien prior to selling or refinancing their property. In 2010, your board became a co-litigant in a federal lawsuit to overturn this rule, and as a result, FHFA was required to follow through with a more thorough rulemaking policy in order to implement those changes. In response to the FHFA policy in 2013, the state of California established a loan loss reserve program. The purpose of the program is to support residential PACE financing by making first mortgage lenders whole for direct losses as a result of a PACE lien that results in a foreclosure or a forced sale. To date, the program has not received any claims. However, it is worth noting that this is a 6-year-old program, and a tax defaulted land sale cannot occur until a property remains in default for 5 years. Additionally, in 2017, the Federal Housing Administration announced it will no longer provide FHA-insured loans to properties with a PACE lien. Finally, in 2019, the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau issued an advance notice of proposed rulemaking to meet legislative requirements to align PACE financing with the ability to repay requirement of the Truth in Lending Act. Since PACE was established in California in 2008, consumer protection concerns surrounding the industry has resulted in several legislative actions that were intended to strengthen lending requirements. As noted in Attachment A to the staff report, other counties in the state have pursued legal remedies in order to protect their residents or have opted out of PACE altogether. Assembly Bill 2693 was passed in 2016. The legislation requires written financing disclosures similar to those on a mortgage form. An excerpt of the AB 2693 financing disclosures has been provided as Attachment C to the staff report. The bill also established a 3-day right to cancel and restricts the ability of PACE providers to represent the effect improvements will have on a property's value. In 2017, Senate Bill 242 was passed, and the bill requires disclosures be made with a property owner over a recorded phone call. The bill also prohibits PACE program administrators from providing kickbacks to contractors and requires program administrators to provide biannual reports on program activity to the local jurisdiction. Also passed in 2017, Assembly Bill 1284 requires PACE program administrators to qualify customers based on their ability to pay rather than on home equity. This now factors income, current debt, mortgage payment, and default and bankruptcy history as part of the underwriting process. The legislation also requires PACE program administrators to obtain a license from the California Department of Business Oversight and requires contractors to be in good standing with the Contractor State License Board. A list of the effective dates of all of the Department of Business Oversight rules has been included as Attachment B to the staff report. Finally, Senate Bill 465 was passed in 2018, and this legislation makes fire resiliency improvements eligible for PACE financing. To better understand the evolution of state-required consumer protections related to PACE financing, staff worked with the Treasurer Tax Collector and Empower staff to compare Empower consumer protections to what is now required by state law. As you can see from this table, while several Empower consumer protections have since been incorporated into state law, not all of the measures have been included. Namely, Empower notarizes all contracts, requires solar improvements to result in a net savings, requires application signatures in addition to disclosure signatures, and verifies completion of work through a qualified staff member or through verification of final building permit sign-off prior to funding a loan. There are 5 approved PACE JPAs in California. Some of them are open PACE programs that allow more than one program administrator within that JPA, while others are specific to a single program administrator. The ones available in the state are through the California Statewide Communities Development Authority Open PACE. It's available to both residential and commercial properties, as is the California Municipal Finance Authority Open PACE. There are approximately 8 program administrators within that Open PACE program. The Golden State Finance Authority Wide Green Energy Fund program is exclusive to the Wide Green Energy Fund as the program administrator, as is the Western Riverside Council of Governments California Hero Program, or Renovate America is the single program administrator. Finally, the California Economic Development Authority Fig Tree PACE program. Dividend Finance is the sole program administrator. However, this program is only available to commercial properties. So while the board is only required to adopt a resolution that is specific to each PACE JPA in order to allow them to operate in unincorporated areas of the county, some jurisdictions have developed separate PACE provider agreements in order to establish stronger consumer protections and further indemnify the jurisdiction. If your board is interested in further exploring this option, staff recommends the board not take action today, but directs staff to conduct more research on this topic and work with interested PACE providers to draft an agreement for your consideration. This slide includes some examples of terms that have been suggested to staff or included in other agreements. Some of these examples include requiring delinquent PACE liens to be removed from the property tax roll, requiring program administrators to participate in the state's loan loss reserve program, provide a more robust disclosure of federal government rules regarding PACE, a termination clause, and county retention of renewable energy credits. With respect to the first bullet point, this stipulation was included in Assembly Bill 271 in 2017. However, that legislation was unsuccessful. Since the staff report was published, staff has received feedback from PACE program administrators that they would not be amenable to this provision. Allowing the PACE market to operate in the county would have some impacts to current staffing, though is not expected to result in a need for additional staff. The level of staff time required would really vary on the level of involvement preferred by your board. Additionally, the county auditor controller would be responsible for placing the assessments on the tax roll and would charge an administrative fee to do so. And the treasurer tax collector would have some staff time involved with respect to delinquent collections and defaults. The treasurer tax collector is only able to recoup costs via a defaulted land sale, which cannot occur until a property has been in default for 5 years. Finally, we've included some options for your consideration today in addition to the action being requested. The first option would be to adopt the necessary resolutions and agreement consistent with the action requested. The second option is to direct staff to work with interested PACE providers to modify the resolutions and or develop a PACE provider agreement to include additional or adjusted terms as identified by your board and direct staff to return to the board as soon as possible. The third option is to take no action and or ask staff to conduct further analysis. And the fourth option is other action as determined by your board. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, board members have any questions prior to opening up to the public? I don't see any questions at this time by board members, so let's go ahead and invite folks who are interested in commenting on this item to come forward. Please state your name for the record. Try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. John Falk, Taos Air Board of Realtors, Legislative Advocate. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. For the record, the Taos Air Board of Realtors finds the PACE objectives laudable in principle, but problematic in practice. And that's the devil. It's in the details. And we, as an organization, when this was first under consideration in Placer County, we had grave misgivings, but Empowered went well above and beyond what is required by state law to ameliorate our concerns. And to date, we haven't had any problems that I'm aware of with the Empower program, other than it spun itself down. But with that said, we would hope that you wouldn't take action on any of the resolutions put before you today, and rather would seek to bring together not only the PACE providers, but also interested parties such as my organization and others that would be interested in being involved in hammering out a set of rules and regulations that would be more akin to what Empower has put into play, because that, we think, is the best for preserving property rights and protecting consumer interests. We would hope that over time it will become less problematic as the bad actors get weeded out from the rest of the field. But at least at present, there's a mix of players in the field. And as you are aware, I think the staff report might have even mentioned it, both state and federal rulemaking efforts are underway. So if anything, I would consider it premature for you to take action at this juncture unless you were to go well above and beyond the rulemaking procedures that are under consideration at this time. And the rulemaking procedures, at least at the state level, mirror quite closely Empower's approach with a few variations. We spent a lot of time, TSBOR, with FHFA and their lead attorney talking about the whole issue of disclosure at point of sale, real estate disclosures, and ensuring that this would not encumber sales. And we couldn't come to a consensus with them. They felt that it was a liability hung on the title and that they would not back property sales, Fetty and Franny, sorry, you know what I meant, with such encumbrances in place. So you'd have to retire them. FHA recently did the same. So at this point, at least, it needs to be well disclosed to potential participants prior to them becoming involved, because if they're going to be out of the property soon, it's ill-advised for them to enter into such contracts. Thank you.
Thank you. Morning, sir.
Hello, Honorable Board and Chairman Dustin Rylick of Renovate America Hero Program. I was here right before the RCRC event back in, I want to say it was like September, before this board. Very excited to be back before you again. I wanted to go over a couple of things, especially after hearing from your local realtors. There were challenges with PACE early when the regulations were not as strong as they are today. And so what has happened over time is we actually engaged all of the PACE providers with California Association of Realtors, and the epicenter of where PACE started was in Southern California. There was a gentleman by the name of Paul Herrera that we actually did a lot of engagement, and he's actually moved to a neutral stance on PACE now on a statewide basis, and he's one of the government affairs directors that runs the state organization as well. So we've gotten to a good place because of all of the things that we've done. The bad actors have been eliminated from the program. There's bad actors out there that are in your community today, and we want to make sure that we do not do business with them and they don't have PACE as a tool for themselves. I would hope that the board would move forward with option one to make PACE available to your constituents as an option. One of the things that I did want to address was item number one that we're not able to do, and that is the stripping of it from the tax roll. It creates a problematic situation whereupon if you strip it off of the tax roll, what happens is that is part of the securitization process where you would not be able to have the rate of return to the bondholder. It would also accelerate a foreclosure. So let's say, for instance, Supervisor Gustafson, you go on vacation and you're in Europe and you come back on December 15th, right before the holidays, and you've missed your tax bill. You could actually already be in pre-foreclosure if you forgot to pay your tax bill just from being on vacation because it's been stripped off of the tax bill. We really don't, or off the tax roll. We want to make sure that people are staying in their homes. They have this available as a tool. There's others that will come behind me and speak to some of the other things that have come about, contractor constraints, so forth. But I also wanted to go into some of the FHFA things real quick. What did happen through those negotiations with the real estate community is that disclosures became very, very strong. So homeowners have very strong disclosures, and they have to be disclosed that at time of a sale or a refinance, they're going to have to pay off that PACE assessment. So that is something that has been made very clear, and I'll let the next take over. Sorry.
All right. Thank you. Morning.
Good morning. Thank you, members of the board. My name is Emily Ramey. I work with Y Green Energy Fund. I think you all have gotten numerous emails from me and from some of our contractors, so thanks for being open and willing to accept that information from your constituents. A couple of quick things. We really appreciate staff support in building this item. It takes a lot of work to analyze it, and the due diligence is much appreciated. Couple of quick corrections. We do extensive property owner information sharing training. I would call it similar to the Empower program. We also do extensive contractor training well in advance of any new contractors using our program, and ongoing monitoring and training for all of our program services, as well as disciplinary action and corrective action to contractors that may have made a mistake, may have been performing in ways that we just don't simply agree with and therefore are terminated. So as well, just to speak to the realtor training, we do a lot of that too. We've been very successful in working with regional realtor association offices and talking with them about how to essentially find out about PACE by doing the preliminary title search, and that's it. And it's usually the problems that come up in point of sale at the end when a property's in escrow and it surprises the realtor, and they don't like that, and that's totally understandable. So we try to get to that on the front end by doing our association trainings, and we're more than happy to do that here. So. And finally, to speak to contractor training and management, PACE often is associated with these complaints about contractor misconduct, but contractor misconduct's been going on since the beginning of the home improvement industry, right? PACE is associated with it because we've created a channel where now folks hear about it, and there's a complaint channel that we monitor and we address and we resolve. And so that's really important, and we're willing to take that responsibility because of that association made with this channel where people can actually have recourse from contractor misconduct. So we're willing to take that responsibility, and we've done a really good job to try to own that and exactly as you said, weed out the bad actors, and it's a work in progress. Some of the Assembly Bill information from 1284, specifically, we do very rigorous contractor recruitment training and ongoing oversight with our regional account managers, which are hired salespeople in the field that are the liaison between the property owner and the contractor. Some of the training topics that are mandated by law include PACE programs and assessment contracts. What does that look like? What is the language in the contract? PACE disclosures, like the know before you owe disclosures that are required. Ethics, fraud prevention, consumer protection in general, non-discrimination, senior financial abuse. Again, ongoing oversight and management from our field team. And then finally as well, the program handbook that was in the staff report from our program is sort of one of the many materials we provide property owners early on in the sales process, and they have to attest to having received and read that information before they even advance in the application. So they're well informed about the rules and the guardrails of the program. So thanks very much. I appreciate your time and your consideration of option 1 for PACE. Thanks. Oh, and I have some handouts for you if you need a little more reading material from Y Green.
Hand them to the clerk of the board, please. Morning.
Morning, board. My name is Chris Peterson. I represent E3. We're part of CSCDA. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss adopting PACE here in Placer County. Over the last few years, there have been several legislative enhancements to the PACE program, including mortgage level disclosures, stringent underwriting criteria that takes into account the applicant's ability to pay, mandatory contractor training, regulatory enforcement by the Department of Business Oversight, a 3-day right of rescission, even a phone call with applicants confirming the terms of the assessment to ensure they understand PACE and how it works. PACE has also been expanded to include seismic retrofits and fire mitigation improvements. The results of these enhancements have been overwhelmingly positive. We have so much so that the realtor organizations have officially taken a neutral position, except for here in Placer County, I guess. We are proud to say that PACE now offers the most consumer protections in the home improvement financing market today. And it continues to play an important role as a financing solution for property owners here in California. PACE, by the way, is paid off at the time of sale. We make that very clear. That's not any different than a HELOC or a second. Okay, and it can be paid through escrow. And by the way, both of those HELOCs and seconds, they don't have nearly the consumer protections that PACE does, or the repercussions for contractors who don't do a good job. So we encourage you to take these legislative enhancements, consumer protections, and the overall positive evolution of the PACE industry into consideration today. And we look forward to making a positive impact here in Placer County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Leah Wiggs, and I'm with Renew Financial. I wanted to thank you for hearing PACE today. And again, thank your staff for bringing this item forward and doing their due diligence. I wanted to actually bring up some great achievements of PACE in California. So PACE was designed as public purpose financing. And as your staff mentioned, in California, homeowners can use PACE for home improvement measures that save energy, generate energy, conserve water, help with seismic safety, and most recently, fire prevention. And some of those measures also include energy storage and generators, which we all know, especially recently given the rolling blackouts, are really important for your constituents to have access to. And in California, PACE has provided private funds to save 10 billion gallons of water, install 285 megawatts of solar, create 67,000 new jobs, reduce 5.3 million metric tons of CO2, and generate $10 billion in economic development, as well as save 18 billion kilowatt hours of electricity. The state of California took into account all stakeholders while creating rules for the industry that folks mentioned previously. That included treasurer tax collectors, realtors, consumer groups, local governments, and policy experts to make sure that they were strengthening PACE to serve your constituents and all of California. With that, I just wanted to thank you for your time and echo my colleagues in asking you to vote for option number 1 to bring PACE forward today and make it available to your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janine Romney. I work for a local title company. I'm a certified senior escrow officer, and I've been in the title business since 1983. The PACE program allows you to borrow up to 100% of your property value. When we talk about realtors being blindsided, it's because when you go to sell your property, you don't get 100% back. So it makes it difficult for sellers to sell their property once they've encumbered it up to 100%. In addition to that, if you're going forward with the PACE program, I would hope that you would take more time to investigate the downsides. The other downsides that we have run across as a title company is they record something called a notice of an independent contract, notice of an independent solar energy contract, for example, for solar. That gets recorded against people's property without their signature because it's a notice of the contract. The contract comes across to them electronically, and they digitally sign it, and then the notice gets recorded on their property. Some people who go forward in getting estimates have the notice recorded against their property before they're aware of it, and before they actually go and put the windows on the house or the solar on the roof by accident. They discover that the lien's been recorded down the road when they go in to sell their property and they get a title report. There's this lien recorded against this property for something that was not provided for them. So as you go forward and consider maybe bringing other companies in other than Empower, who's done a fabulous job of educating people and requiring that they come in and asking to have their signatures notarized in person, before you consider having other companies come forward, I would hope you do more investigation with these other companies that are presenting to you today to find out what their procedures are and how they could be more conservative in their approach when they lend funds. We've also found, sitting across from homeowners, that they do build in additional items that can be done on the property that are not actually approved items for our PACE program, such as grass. You can put in sprinklers and drip systems, and somebody will throw in grass for you. So that's an example, and I would just hope that you would do more research before making any decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Board. I'm not a public speaker, so bear with me here. I have been asked to do this by an overwhelming request from contractors. I work for Renew Financial, the Open Pay CSCDA opt-in.
Your name, sir?
Michael St. Lawrence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie Schultz from American Home Energy Savers, John Wiley from Epic Home, Jason Nicholson from Phoenix Solar, and Cecil Sims from Comfort Controls are some of dozens of contractors who've asked me to speak on their behalf because they couldn't be here because it's been busy. Tons of requests for solar, battery backups, fire resiliency measures, windows, people that can't afford their roofs. They see a lot of that out here too. So they wanted to make sure that I spoke on their behalf and said there's a lot of business, a lot of homeowners that we can reach out to if this option does go through. Those are some of the contractors in this area that work in Sacramento and Placer County, as well as my home office, which is in Roseville. Those contractors, because of their quality work, their complaint ratio, and what they do, have access to rates as low as 3.49, just to make note of that, since we did see those numbers up on the board. There's also something to note that our term confirmation call is done prior to the signatures of any contract. And if we cannot do that, we do notarize documents in person, and that call does go over everything, all the what-ifs, the attachments of the property taxes, and the fact that it cannot be transferred as well. I've actually used PACE as a customer. I work for this company that's got a lot of integrity, and I really love what they do and they stand for. I think this is going to be a huge help for the community and what's going on there as well. That's about all I have to say on those things. And let me look at my notes here. Apologize. Yeah, that's it. I hope this goes through and moves on, just for all the requests that we get through it for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Annie Costa. I'm a contractor here in Placer County, and I've been serving the area for about 20 years. I'll try and behave. So when I've been listening to the folks, I echo every PACE provider in the room. I really appreciate the programs for my customers. I'm in a water efficiency program. So I don't have really too much knowledge, and you guys are much smarter about all the T's and C's and the details and stuff like that. But I would like to applaud you for bringing these programs forward, for discussing expanding the programs to other providers. We found that the Empower program has been limiting and onerous on both homeowners as well as contractors. Challenges of slowing down our payment processes and a bunch of other stuff really kind of got onerous for us as a company, because we invest basically in all the costs associated with doing the project. I'm funding the labor, the job materials, and all the relationship building expenses to get a job in the ground, and I don't get paid until my customer signs off with satisfaction. So to me, it's really important to work with high quality customers and a good solid program. And in the long term, I worked with just about everybody that's spoken today and have found them to be beneficial for not only my own credibility, but also to provide programs to my customers. In the landscape industry, I don't have a lot of options for financing customers' property improvements. And this is an integral one, and we've lost a lot of business in the last couple of years here in not having programs available through Empower specifically for my industry in water savings. And so also somebody else had brought up a point that I wanted to mention. We are trained and regulated, if you will, by the process. I have to make a number of different kinds of declarations and statements about what I'm going to put down in that customer's property. I've never once had any sod financed ever, but in doing my water efficiency, I might have the drought-resistant gardening portion, pavers or other types of things that will reduce the water usage on the property, installed under the finance program, and then the customer will pay for, out of their own pocket or some other financing, they will pay for other types of product improvements or materials improvements on the property. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. And again, thank you very much for doing this. We really appreciate the opportunities for our customers to have solid, credible financing solutions that I can provide. And because the contractor is really the first one that's going to possibly put that offer in front of the customer to take up that financing, I encourage you to look at expanding your opportunities to these other PACE providers. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Gail Tripp, and I work with E3. Thank you very much for allowing us all to be here today and talk to you about this very, very important program that's important not only for us as employees in the PACE field, but also for your constituents and for the contractors that work here in this region. A lot of the contractors that I work with, several of them were here the last time we all got up and had public comment. They were here to show their support for the program and just let you know how important it is for them. We continue to see really strong support for PACE and strong demand for PACE here in the county. I literally get phone calls, especially now that it's been announced that Empower is going to be shutting down daily. I'm getting phone calls from not only contractors that want to use us, going into the new year, but from property owners that want these improvements and they want to be able to use PACE to be able to do it. So I just wanted to stand here today and just ask you very respectfully to please consider option one. It's very much needed here in the county and would really appreciate your support with moving that forward. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, as this young lady comes forward, just by show of hands, how many more people want to address the board on this item? Just one more. Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Megan Edelman. I'm a senior account manager at Y-Green. So I wanted to speak to the contractor management portion. That's me, okay? My job essentially is from the time a contractor is approved with Y-Green, I'm in charge of their training, right, before they're able to offer the financing. I ensure they hit a number of training aspects with us. They take a PACE agent test they have to pass. It's 2 parts where they have to provide their HIS number, a few other things, as well as the test to be able to actually sell Y-Green. Once a contractor is approved with us, we then go into the 5 projects. They have 5 projects where they kind of have to earn it with us, right? They have to meet a certain criteria with those first 5 before we allow them to be taken off our monitoring list and be given a little bit more not leeway, but they're able to kind of sell on their own, and I'm there to help them any point. That's the second part of my job, is at any time if my contractor's in the home with a homeowner and the homeowner has specific questions, they can call me directly. I walk the homeowner through the process, answer any questions they have. I can get them over to our sales hotline as well. That's where we do the welcome call on a recorded line, go through all the disclosures with them. But what I wanted to make clear is, my job, I'm not just at a desk at a corporate office. I'm in the field, right? I'm at contractors' offices, inspections. I'm at homeowners' houses sometimes. I'm local. I live in El Dorado County. My counterpart, John, lives in Placer County. We are here in the field to ensure these guys are doing it right. And if they're not, we don't want to work with them. So essentially my job is to make sure the trifecta, as I say, the homeowner, the contractor, and Y-Green are all happy at the end of each and every project. As Gail mentioned earlier, I get calls daily now, specifically from Service Champions, Energy Saving Pros. Right now we have what they call the Swiss cheese effect. Homeowners can use Y-Green in El Dorado County, Sac County, and parts of Nevada County, but the Swiss cheese, you can't do it in Placer County. So I really hope the board considers option 1 today. Would love this to get this out to homeowners of Placer County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, board members again. Mike Garabedian, Placer County tomorrow. I am not familiar with the PACE program, but I have some experience, quite a bit in some areas, dealing with fire prevention for properties and homes and things like that. It sounds like that's been added to this, so my question is, what are the standards and rules affecting that? Is CAL FIRE involved? What would our Fire Safe Alliances think of this? It is not never a one-time thing, of course. So I would be very interested to know just what the rules are for people who are investing in fire prevention or fire protection activities on their property or structures.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions and conversation. So in the staff report, you indicated that, I believe it was in 2018, fire hardening measures were added as approved measures. Fire resiliency eligible, yes, in 2018. Was there a specific list of home improvement measures that were included with that? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't have a specific list with me, but
okay.
Really like similar to the other types of PACE improvements, permanently affixed to the structure,
yeah,
and those types of things.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Board members, questions or comments? Don't all speak at once. Supervisor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll kick this off. First of all, I want to thank Matt for doing such a tremendous job putting this all together, and glad to see you presenting to the Board of Supervisors. There's several concerns I have. First of all, I think MPower was a little bit premature in announcing the wind down of the MPower program. Since that time, there's been some events, particularly fires and the power safety shutoff proposal. There was a lot of solar people that had solar that weren't able to have any battery backup. Fire hardening has been added. So the MPower program is, as far as I'm concerned, is the gold standard. They've really done a lot of work. In the staff report, it tells about how they took the lead on some of the legislative actions that's been taken to tighten up the program. So I'm leaning to option 3, to take no action. And if the board wants more information, that's fine with me. But I think if we take no action, give it 6 months to a year and see how the MPower program increases with the addition of backup batteries, generators, and the other issues with fire hardening, I think that would be the best way to go as far as I'm concerned.
All right, thoughts by any of my colleagues along these lines. Supervisor Gore, do you have something? No?
Push my button yet, okay.
Okay. I saw you reaching.
Thinking about. Thank you. So I am new to this conversation and asked a lot of questions at the end of last week. And when I heard that MPower was winding down and not continuing, I thought it would be important for us to see if it made sense to allow the private market to participate in the option for residents, to give them the option for financing, and especially for those who are rich in property but not necessarily have the money to provide financing for these needed things for their homes. So a couple of thoughts. I don't know if MPower is moving forward. One of the things I did notice in the staff report, though, previous, is that they said that maybe the fire resiliency programs or the fire hardening might be too expensive to finance, because most of these programs are 15%, right? 15% of the, well, actually no more than 15% of the property, correct? Okay, so not 100% financing, but 15% of the property. So I don't know if that's the case, if fire hardening is too expensive to provide, and I don't know if MPower, y'all haven't decided to move forward. Has MPower decided, or Pioneer, what has Pioneer decided? Jim, do you know? What is what is?
At our last Pioneer board meeting, we didn't make a decision because Supervisor Euler wanted to bring this item before the board, okay, before we directed Empower,
Well,
Pioneer.
But the last action that our board did take was in June or July, where we directed staff to wind down the Empower program. And that included laying off of some staff people that were specific to the Empower program. And that was at the time at the request of the executive director, who noted that we had a decrease in the number of applications and
Right.
so that's the last action that our board did take.
Okay. Where am I going? So I've appreciated the work that the Empower program has done, because based on the staff report, additional consumer protection, and since then, right, there's been some state protections, legislation passed. I do think if we're to move forward, that I would want to make sure that there are some of these additional protections that have been provided. You know, I look at this as an opportunity for the free market, but at the same time, making sure that we have protections for the consumer. So if we were to move forward, I would want to make sure we had some additional protections, and I think some of those have been laid out by our treasurer tax collector based on the experience that the Empower program has had, and there's several recommendations that we've been given.
Yep. Okay. I'll just share my thoughts on the item. I mean, right now, we have a third-party provider. This is no longer, Empower is no longer a county-run program. So we're in the third-party provider business. The question is, do we just stick with one third-party provider, or do we open it up to competition amongst third-party providers, since it's no longer a county function? And I think markets have demonstrated time and again that where you have competition, you have better consumer protections, you have better rates. And so my very strong preference is that we adopt the model that's more akin, I guess, to what California Statewide Communities Development Authority and the California Municipal Finance Authority have done, where they have an open program with multiple PACE program administrators, and let the market and the consumer make their decision. And frankly, if Empower wants to remain in the business, Empower can be a provider. There's nothing precluding Empower from competing in that environment. Those are my thoughts. Supervisor Gustafson?
We've heard a fair amount of testimony about contractors being approached with the need for this program, and just since I've taken office, there's been so much comment I've received from folks that are really in a dilemma with their fire insurance and really wanting to harden their homes and make other improvements. But as Supervisor Gore stated, they maybe have a lot of equity and property, but maybe not as much cash to devote to these things, especially with the insurance rates escalating. So I see a need in the market. I have had a lot of people talk to me about the concerns in consumer protection, and so I don't feel prepared today to make a recommendation without having much more discussion on how we appropriately protect the consumers and address those concerns. I like the idea of maybe convening a group with the realtors and the contractors to talk about it if that could work. And I certainly would agree that if Empower wants to continue, because their numbers don't show what we're hearing from people and what the contractors are reporting. So there's some sort of disconnect there. And I know in the Tahoe area there's been some businesses that have also asked about participating in, and because of the wind down of Empower, maybe haven't had that opportunity. So perhaps there is a place to help meet the consumer's needs. And ultimately, we're trying to meet the consumer's needs, not the business needs. So what do they need for, what tools? And with 20 other counties participating, I would be interested in hearing, how many total properties in California have taken advantage of this. We have our stats for the Empower, but I don't know what's going on in our neighboring counties and other areas, and that might be an interesting a bit of information to have as to how those programs are doing in other areas and what kind of demand they're seeing as well.
So it sounds like you're
I'm open. How's
more
that?
more toward option two? You're looking for a little more information, but you want to engage with the PACE provider.
Yeah,
as well as
yeah, I think so, and I would think that having a little more analysis and also, again, a discussion with Pioneer and Empower to make sure that, that they want to continue down that path as well, because then I'd really see a need to move forward with this.
Okay.
They're going to wind down, if they're definitively winding down. And the letter we just received yesterday, I was reading it, I'm still not clear. That doesn't appear that there's been a change in that direction from Empower, but I want to make sure of that.
Okay. Supervisor Gore?
And I would appreciate some additional data. One of the questions I asked staff was, so what's worked in other jurisdictions, what's not worked? I had heard concerns that there were folks who didn't like the programs and were concerned about consumer protection. And so I would just appreciate staff coming back to us with what's been successful and what's not. And there might be 15 programs. I heard that there are 15 different PACE programs. Do we want to open it up to 15 different programs? Maybe we do. Market competition, to your point, Supervisor Euler, is important. But I would appreciate having some more information and having it come back to us.
Sure. Okay. I'll just add that on the line of consumer protection, obviously things have changed since 2005, but from 2000 to 2005, I was running the Electric and Gas Industries Association. We were one of the few Fannie Mae home energy improvement lenders that were approved for energy efficiency lending back then. And in fact, we applied to the California Public Utilities Commission and were awarded some public goods charge funds for buying down interest rates on high efficiency HVAC installations. And we were doing high efficiency HVAC unsecured loans as low as 2.9% at the time. And one of the keys to the program was the evaluation, measurement, and verification side of it. And attendant with that is what the young lady was referring to, and that is the contractor policing, if you will, because yes, you did have folks who were trying to figure out different ways to add in additional measures and drive up that total loan value. But ultimately, the responsibility landed with us because Fannie Mae made it very clear that if we funded a loan that the consumer ended up disputing and saying, I didn't get the installed measures, we had to buy back the loan. And so we had a portfolio of loans that we had to service and administer every time, we had a problem where Fannie Mae said, this is not a loan that we recognize because you guys did not either properly do the end of job service inspection, you didn't get the authorization from the homeowner that the work was complete, any of those things. And this was in 2005, before PACE even came into existence. So I have to imagine the nature of regulation being what it is. It's only stricter now than it was in 2005. So I'm very familiar with the process and very comfortable with the measures that are in place in the marketplace. But I do think that perhaps moving toward option 2, getting a little bit more information with input from the lending community and the contractor community, as well as the realtors, to the extent that John and others are interested in participating in coming back to our board. But what I, again, would like to see return is one that opens the marketplace up as much as possible to deliver consumers the broadest choice possible, because I think that ultimately inures to the benefit of the consumer by increasing competition, driving down price, increasing the opportunity for them to choose amongst multiple providers. So, Supervisor Holmes?
Oh, I just want to reiterate that I prefer option 3 to take no action, and we can actually get more information from the providers that will help us make a determination. And that would give Empower time, 6 months to a year, to see how their portfolio has grown since the changes in power shutoffs and fire resiliency have come forward. So I still prefer option 3.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor.
Can I just ask a question, Supervisor Holmes? So in the meantime, is Empower accepting new applicants? In other words, if we wait 6 months or a year, are there consumers able to get help?
Yeah, the program will still be working. Yeah, Janine is
Nodding yes. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't
still.
see you back.
So we give the opportunity, since this new information has been provided, to let the board know that there are people interested in doing those new items that are on the list.
And I appreciate that. I would simply reiterate that we are operating in an environment now where we have a third-party provider, and like I said, markets seem to work best when opened up to additional competition. So those are my thoughts. Supervisor Wygant, you've been suspiciously quiet. Any thoughts on this?
Suspiciously?
Yes. For you?
Yeah, I'll throw my hat into the option number 2, and I think in addition to the comments that have already been made, I'll only add that maybe that'll infuse a little more intensity, a little bit more expediency and detail into the review that gets back to the board more quickly.
Okay. Do we have a motion for an option at this time?
Move for option 2, along with getting input from some of the interest groups in the process.
Okay. We have a second? Second. Okay, motion Gore, second Wygant for option 2. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Gore?
Yes.
Wygant?
Yes.
Holmes?
Yes.
Gustafson? Yes. Euler?
Aye. All right, thank you very much. All right, we'll jump back to our 9:10 timed item. This is revision to mitigation monitoring reporting program, conditions of approval of Placer Vineyards and subdivision maps. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Rebecca Tabor. I'm the Deputy Director of the Engineering and Surveying Division of the Community Development Resource Agency. The item before you is a revision to the Placer Vineyards Specific Plan, PVSP, Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, MMRP, and Small Lot Vesting Tentative Subdivision Maps. To orient you just a little bit, the Placer Vineyards project is located in the southwestern portion of the county. Baseline Road runs along the north side, and the southern border is the Sacramento-Placer County boundary. Watt Avenue runs north-south in this location. This specific plan was approved in 2007. It provides direction for development of 5,230 acres with a mix of residential, commercial, retail, office, mixed use, and public facilities. The projected build-out is over a 20 to 30-year period. Construction of the Phase 1 backbone infrastructure by the Placer Vineyards Development Group is imminent, with a planned start in the spring of 2020. The 2007 EIR included mitigation measure 4.5-4D, which described improvement plan submittal with a requirement for a winterization erosion control security to guarantee erosion protection and protect against improper grading practices. The form of the security is cash only or letter of credit, and the amount is specified as 110% of the engineer's estimate for erosion protection of the entire disturbed area. This is our typical practice for all projects to meet the state water quality, NPDES water quality permit requirements. However, for the Placer Vineyards project, the large backbone infrastructure security amount is substantial. We recognize that. The developer also asked for relief for this large upfront cash payment. Upon review of other neighboring jurisdictions, we found that other jurisdictions have a lesser security amount, bonding, or some combination of both. Therefore, we're proposing a cap on the cash security amount of $100,000, with the remainder of the calculated amount allowed to be bonded. This will still give the county the ability to quickly address any public safety or water quality issues in an emergency situation, and then pursue bond money if needed for further remedy. This provides more flexibility to the project proponent, less burden of an upfront cash payment, and will facilitate projects to begin construction. The intent of the mitigation measure is still met, and the proposed changes are consistent with county code. To implement this change, we would need to modify the mitigation measure in the MMRP and also modify the 6 Placer Vineyards property small lot tentative maps that have already been approved. Therefore, staff recommends the board take the following actions. I wanted to point out that these are in a slightly different order than contained in your staff report. The first is to make a finding that no changes have occurred in the project or existing circumstances that would warrant additional environmental analysis for the proposed modifications. Second is to adopt a resolution amending the mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the Placer Vineyard specific plan to modify mitigation measure 4.5-4D as shown in attachment 1 and exhibits A and B. This is found on page 4 of your staff report. And third, to approve a modification to each Placer Vineyard specific plan small lot vesting tentative map condition of approval as contained in attachment 2, which is found on page 136 of your staff report, to reflect the change to mitigation measure 4.5-4D. For quick reference, I've included a table that shows the 6 entitled Placer Vineyards maps, small lot maps. They are properties 1A, 4B, 7, 12B, 15, and 19, with the associated planning permit numbers and then the conditions of approval that need to be modified to reflect the change to the mitigation measure. Property owners for each of these properties have consented to this modification, and that's in attachment 2. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, board members have any questions? I see Mr. McDermott in the audience. Mr. McDermott, as the project manager for the Placer Vineyards project, did you have any comments for the board? All right. I believe Mr. McDermott was a recent graduate from college when he started this position.
Exactly. Look what happened. My name's Kent McDermott, and I represent the Placer Vineyards Development Group, and we're very supportive of the recommendation that staff is bringing before you this morning. And it's more consistent with what other jurisdictions do as well in other areas. So I appreciate all the work that both Steve and Rebecca have done, and just ask for your support.
Right.
Available for any questions.
Thank you much. All right, any members of the public want to address the board on this item prior to us taking action?
Hello again, Mike Garavedian, Placer Vineyard. Just kidding.
You
Placer County tomorrow.
Okay.
There are a couple of very big questions about this. The first one being, what is the cash payment that's required now? How much is that? You think you should know, or the public should know.
And I believe she covered that in the staff report, but we'll ask her to do that again.
I read the staff report. I didn't see it. I didn't see the cash amount in there. Maybe I missed it, but it sure isn't in there. I read it line by line. Yeah, another major question, I think there are two major questions, but a lot of others about this, is what counties are being looked at, or what counties or cities or whatever are being looked at for comparison? It would be good to know what that is and what kind of projects they are that involves. I think there's a question of fairness here. How many developers are having to pay the cash fee? You know, why are they different than this one? It's big. But, you know, is there a fairness or lack of equity here you're engaging in? Or is this going to be a precedent others are going to want to follow? There are other changes that seem to be this time. Maybe they were made earlier. I think the biggest question there is, allowing PCCP to step in on mitigation and replace the mitigation required here. I don't know if that's before you now, but it looks like, that's what looks like it's been added. The question is, does that So is the PCCP going to require more mitigation or less mitigation than that's in the mitigation requirements now? Anyway, I think there are a number of other questions, but those are the ones I'd start with. And I would note that, as we note here, this is, I think, maybe the third time changes have been made in the mitigation requirements, and which I think raises questions about this and other decisions the county makes on plans. Thank you.
All right. Before I let County Council respond, I will point out that on page 2 of our staff report, the second to the last paragraph reads, the maximum cash security amount per improvement plan set to be collected is proposed to be capped at $100,000, with the remainder of the security permissible to be provided via bonding. So I believe that addresses the first question that was asked. Sir, you've had your opportunity, if you would, please.
It doesn't.
County Council wants
to find out what they would have to pay right now.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind. Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm going to go backwards, and I'm going to let Rebecca respond to that last question. Related to amending the mitigation, monitoring, and reporting plan for the Placer Vineyards project, as this board knows, this is a large project. This sort of thing is anticipated. With each potential change, staff reviews it in the context of the certified EIR and the addenda that have been adopted over the years to determine whether the proposed mitigation measure change is consistent with that particular analysis. In every case, an addendum has been produced. In this case, we have a reliance on the certified EIR and addenda. It is not uncommon, again, to revise mitigation measures when you have a large specific plan, such as this case, and that's what's being done now. Chapter 18 of the code allows that. It allows it to be brought directly to the board as the approving authority, and that's what we've done here. Related to PCCP, actually, this all happened in 2012 when the settlement agreement was implemented for the project along with an addendum. That is not a new provision, and it's certainly not in front of the board today. In terms of precedent, well, it might serve in terms of changing this particular mitigation. This captures all of the current tentative subdivision maps that are currently approved in Placer Vineyards. There may be potential others that come forward. It's not uncommon when you have a project that's required to install backbone infrastructure in the millions of dollars to look at ways to make it more affordable in terms of how much of a deposit or a cash security is required for erosion control, because you can imagine if you're putting in miles of sewer and have to put erosion control, what that dollar amount might amount to. So would it serve as potential precedent for other Placer Vineyards maps? Maybe. If I'm not mistaken, staff is proposing this as a permanent change to address those large-scale projects, and that will come back as a separate time to this board for a public hearing. Question of fairness. Yeah, I think this is a question of fairness, and it's a question of fairness on both sides. One, that developers with large infrastructure requirements are not required to put up millions of dollars of cash for erosion control when the same security can be handled with a combination of cash and a bond. And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about a reduction in the security. We're talking about the difference in how that security is provided to the board, and we just happen to have a code provision that's a little stricter than would allow that particular latitude, which is why we're here. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca about dollars.
Okay. As mentioned, the cap is $100,000, and the remainder of the calculated amount would be permissible to be bonded. And a couple of examples of other jurisdictions that we looked into. Folsom, they allow the form is bond or other acceptable form. The amount is 100% of the erosion control amount, whereas the county's is 110%, so we're a little higher. And we don't have the flexibility in the form of how we collect. City of Roseville, bond or cash, there's flexibility. The amount is 10% of the grading or the earthwork for the project and the erosion control element. So that's less, 10%. There's a few others. City of Sacramento, any acceptable form. City of Lincoln allows bonding, 10% of the grading and erosion control. So we definitely felt that we were pretty strict, and we wanted to change that.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Gore.
Just a quick question. So this is if the developer actually does not take care of erosion control, correct? So their job is to make sure that when they're grading, that the erosion is controlled, that there's not runoff, et cetera. Right. And this is only if they don't do their job appropriately, then the county has some recourse to collect some money to address that, correct?
Absolutely, you're right. There's very few instances where we've had to collect and use this security in the past,
right. The whole
15
purpose
years
of
I
this
can
is to
think
make
of.
sure that they do their job, and why would they spend money that they don't have to if they do their job correctly up front?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. In some cases, Steve had already community development. We have one of the sets of improvement plans. I think it was $675,000 would have to be put forward just for that set of improvement plans, and we would hold on to that for about 18 months until a year after the construction is done. It's just excessive. I think something happened a long time ago, and we went to cash because it's readily available with erosion control. You get out and you can fix a problem right away. But we don't have to go quite as far as we're going now. We're way more conservative than anywhere else. We're still a little more conservative with what we're proposing at this point. And so we're going to continue to look at that over time and see what might be the most appropriate form of security over a long period of time. As we got to the bigger projects that we're doing now, that's what really stuck out. Smaller projects, it's not as big a deal.
And I know I've only been involved in the PCCP for 13 years, but I don't recall us having any mitigation in the PCCP for erosion control. So I'm not sure what relevance that has. All right. Any other public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. I've been advised by council that all three action items can be taken in one motion. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll move approval of the three items.
That was a motion, Gore, second Holmes. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. We move on to our first department head item. This is facilities management. Item 3A.
Good morning, Chair Euler, members of the board, Paul Breckenridge, Capital Improvements, and I'm pleased to be here this morning to ask for your authorization for the Director of Facilities Management, or designee, to execute a consultant service agreement with Hamel, Green, and Abramson, HGA, for criteria documents for a proposed new HHS office, Health and Human Services office building at the BCGC Placer County Government Center in an amount not to exceed $770,395. Just a quick little bit of background to get to this point. December 8th, 2015, your board approved the agreement to move ahead with programming. So that programming effort was completed and is and will be used for the current criteria documents effort we will be, if approved, we'll be going through now. It was completed and be used to inform this current service. Subsequently, in 2017, your board approved a series of capital improvement projects, one in which was the preparation of the environmental documents for the project level review of the HHS admin building, which is now complete. And more recently, just November 5th, your board directed staff to amend the 5-year facilities capital improvement plan to add the HHS office building and proceed with design and construction. So working with procurement, we went through an RFP process that resulted in 12 firms. We interviewed, looks like we interviewed 5 and found that HGA was our most qualified firm, and we've negotiated that the contract in that amount for the criteria documents. So the criteria documents is a critical piece of the puzzle as we're preparing for the design build effort for the Health and Human Services building that we're looking to kick off here potentially in the next 6 months. So as we're going through this effort, we'll be ready for that phase one, which is your RFQ, request for qualifications for the design build teams in 2020. So the criteria documents include detailed information in support of the programming effort, and does include outline specifications, so getting us to important information, the roadmap, if you will, for our design build teams. We're looking to commence today, if approved, and mainly get going in January of 2020, conclude midway or latter part of the summer of next year. And with that, the total estimated cost of the HHS office building criteria documents is at $925,270, the cost of which the HCA contract plus project management testing contingencies and is included in the 1920 budget. So with that, I'll take questions.
All right, board members have any questions on this item? And Supervisor Holmes.
How soon can you start?
We've got, we'll see. We're going to get going as soon as we can.
Okay, seeing no other questions, any members of the public? All right, bring it back to the board.
Second.
Motion Holmes, second Wygant. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, item B, being asked to consider a little property acquisition.
Morning.
Good morning.
Eric Findlay, Department of Facilities Management, Real Estate Services. I'm the property manager, and we're here to present to you a potential acquisition of a property the county currently leases in Roseville. So the action requested today is to approve a purchase and sale agreement for the acquisition of 8.8 acres of land with a 54,516 square foot building located at 101 Kirby Hills Drive in Roseville for $13,650,000, to adopt a resolution to authorize the Director of Facilities Management to take all actions necessary to complete the acquisition, to approve budget amendments totaling $14,450,000 for the acquisition costs, as well as building maintenance capital costs and parks and grounds capital project costs, and to authorize the addition of the Kirby Hills property to the county's comprehensive capital assets list once acquired. So this is the property. It's right next to Highway 80 in the southern portion of Roseville off of Kirby Way. And one unique thing is I want to point out is that we currently lease the building and parking lots, but we would be acquiring the entire property, which would be another 2 acres of land approximately that is not part of our current premise area. So that's vacant land that we'd be additionally acquiring. And there are no changed uses to the land or building, but this would just be additional property. This is the building. It was built in 1987. It's a slab-on-grade 1- and 2-story building. It was originally constructed as a community hospital building and is now county services. The county is required by the state of California to provide psychiatric emergency services, including hospitalization. We have been leasing the entire building since 2000. And Health and Human Services Adult System of Care provides a variety of services at this building, including a 16-bed psychiatric health facility and a 14-bed short-term crisis residential facility. And we have a staff, HHS staff of 120, as well as contract program employees of an additional 45. The county did an RFP back in 2013 looking for potentially alternative locations or operations to potentially move this somewhere else, and there was really no other feasible facility. This is a unique facility that serves our needs, and on May 20th, based on the results of that RFP, we did a 15-year extension of our lease with the current owner. So we have a 15-year lease until 2029 with additional options. And our annual rent and building operation is currently, operating expense is currently at about $1.1 million with a 2% annual increase. So we were notified by the building owner, Barry Swenson Builder, or BSB Roseville LLC, on October 9th that they intended to list the property for sale at $14 million. Per our current lease, we have a first right of refusal. So the county and the owner executed a non-binding letter of intent on November 8th for a purchase price of $13,650,000. And at that time, we initiated due diligence. So we've leased the building since 2000. We're very familiar with the building operations and lands, but we started doing additional due diligence at that time, looking at title, physical condition of the land, and environmental as well. And so that is ongoing, and we're wrapping that up as we speak. The value of the property. So there's two values on the property. There's the value to the county, and there's the value on the market. The property adds value to us because it's a unique service we provide there in a unique building, and we would reduce, by owning it, the complexities of trying to negotiate future leases or find a new home to be in if we had to. So we have that. It's been specialized for our needs, and so recently in the last few years there's been over $3 million in tenant improvements, some of which the building owner has paid and some of which the county has paid. And then the owner has also done some improvements to the building, new roof, AC units, and other operations. So there's been a lot of work done on the building. So that's the value of the county. On the open market, this would be an investment property because it has a long-term, stable county tenant till 2029. So it does have value on the market. So purchase and sale agreement that we're asked to be considered today is for $13,650,000. It has the ongoing LOI investigation period, and that's important because the LOI investigation period would end on December 19th. Today is the 17th. Our deposit of $100,000, which was paid when we initiated the LOI, would become non-refundable on the 19th in 2 days. So that's why we've been doing our due diligence ongoing, and we're ready to clear title conditions, environmental and physical, if we so choose. The close of escrow, though, would occur after December 31st, but prior to January 15th, 2020. Funding for this is coming from two sources. $2.4 million would come from the Mental Health Services Act funds, and then $11,320,000 would come from the general fund reserves. HHS has a program in the county where there would be depreciation of the useful life of the building, and that would be paid back to the county through a program or a cost plan. And there will be others here, if you so desire, that could explain this much better than I can. So with that, the acquisition of this property is a benefit to the county because it'll stabilize the services we provide, as far as not having to look for a future location. We're paying roughly $1 million a year in rent and operating costs. We're going to receive the benefits of ownership rather than continuing to pay rent. And over a 14-year payback period, we will have purchased the building if you just consider the rent we would be paying. So with that, we have Dave DeFonte, or questions, but we have Dave DeFonte and Daniel Chatney from CEO's office. We have Jeff Brown, Amy Ellis, and Darlene King from HHS, and Michael Mazakowski, the Senior Project Manager for Real Estate Services, who's been working on this acquisition and is very familiar. And any questions you have, we'd be happy to answer.
All right, thank you very much. Supervisor Holmes.
Thank you, Eric, for bringing this forward. I was at a meeting at that facility last night with the Mental Health, Drug, and Alcohol Advisory Board, and part of my presentation was that we had the opportunity to purchase this building, and I can't tell you how excited they were. And so, and they want to make sure we have adequate parking, so I'm sure that'll be taken care of. I needed to say that just so they know that I heard them. But the other benefit is that that property is zoned for that type of use, and it's very difficult to find properties that have that type of use available without having an uproar from the residents or people that are opposed to it. So I'm just excited that we're finally able to purchase this. We probably should have done this several years ago. So I'm in full support of this.
And as far as parking, there is a capital improvement plan to increase the existing parking lot and reconfigure, as well as there are options for looking at parking in the future. There is land there.
And I let staff know that we were already looking at that. So
Great.
thanks.
And have we confirmed that expansion on the property is possible in terms of the building footprint, and that the expansion, the use can ride with that expansion?
Yes, so we've spoke with the city of Roseville, and it is zoned, and we're allowed. There's a conditional use permit. If we were to expand, let's say, to in a vacant area, we would need to get a conditional use permit for that area as well, but we anticipate that that would be able to be obtained.
Let me add to this a second, because when we look at this building, the building's a little over 50,000 square foot. Is that
54,000 plus?
The admin support staff in this building is a little over 34,000 of that overall building. There's only really 16 beds right now for the so any growth we'd anticipate, if we are going and building on the building, we are building on another part of that site, we'd probably do it for the administrative staff, which is consistent with the professional office building use.
Correct.
And we'd expand within the current footprint, which would be consistent with the conditional use permit.
That's a great distinction. Thank you. Very helpful. All right. Other questions by board members prior to opening up for public comment? Seeing none, any members of the public want to address the board on this item prior to us considering action? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for action. We do have some budget revisions associated with this that will require a roll call vote, but is there a problem with taking the entirety in one motion if we do it under roll call?
Yep.
All right, fantastic. That's what I like to hear. So what's the pleasure of the board? All right, that was a motion, Holmes. I'm going to give the second to Gustafson because she decided to chime in. And I just want to say thank you to staff for this opportunity. I think this is one of these unique opportunities that secures our service delivery well into the future, whereas some of us sat here a few years back looking at other opportunities to leave this site and find a new location in Roseville to deliver this service, and holy smokes, that was a tough exercise. So there will be boards in the future who will be thankful that we took this step today. So thank you for doing this. All right, with that, we'll have a roll call, please.
Core? Yes. Wygant?
Yes.
Holmes? Yes. Gustafson? Yes. Bueller?
Aye. Thank you so much. All right, on to item C, Mercy Housing, California Multifamily Workforce Housing Project, amendment to option ground lease.
Good morning again. Paul Breckenridge, Capital Improvements. So I'm here to ask for authorization for the Director of Facilities Management to execute an agreement or an amendment to option to the ground lease agreement with Mercy Housing California for the proposed multifamily workforce housing project, the potential project at the Government Center for the county to cover, subject to reimbursement, Mercy's pre-development costs up to a maximum of $2 million and subject to County Council's approval. So a little bit of background is we've done a lot of work to get to this point. Back in June 2018, your board approved the option to ground lease agreement with Mercy, and that allowed Mercy to get going on some very specific tasks to get to a place where they are now in readiness for potentially moving ahead and looking forward to the ground lease, actually getting going at the ground lease. So Mercy has completed the various entitlement and planning tasks needed to qualify for a 9% low-income housing tax credit application. In November 2018, your board authorized HHS to apply for some grants. So again, another piece of the puzzle to get to this point. We applied for the grants, or Mercy applied for the grants in coordination with our Health and Human Services folks. And we were awarded both, obviously, the non-competitive, but the competitive side for a total of $2.751 million, which was a critical piece of the puzzle, and again, part of the county's contribution for the funding plan. 2019, we went through, your board approved the PCGC Master Plan Update, the final, the EIR, which included the project level review for the multifamily workforce housing project. Let's see, and that also included the NEPA effort that would allow us to go after Mercy, to go after the federal funds. June 11, 2019, your board approved the funding plan based on using a 9% low-income housing tax credit format, and that included the county financial consideration of $7.9 million. July 2019, Mercy, and they'd done all the work to get to the submission of the 140-page application to the Tax Credit Allocation Committee. That was submitted. There were 79 other project applicants vying for the same tax credits or similar tax credits. And at the time, the thought was that the project was just out of the ranking or scoring to receive those tax credits. So more recently, the end of November, Mercy was notified that TCAC, the Tax Credit Allocation Committee, that issues with the project that was just ahead of the Mercy project was now being considered for a possible tax credit. They were agendized for the December 11th, 2019 TCAC meeting, and just last week, TCAC approved the reservation, the credit reservation for the tax credits for the project, approximately $30 million of equity of the $38 million project. So if tax credits are ultimately secured, Mercy will have secured the major funding components pieces approved by your board in the funding plan, and again, be one step closer to exercising the option. So this Friday, Mercy has until December 20th to accept the credit reservation and provide TCAC with a $150,000 non-refundable deposit. And upon acceptance of the reservation, Mercy then has 6 months to get to a place where they have building permit or construction readiness. There are certain criteria that TCAC has for them to have that, including their financing pieces and including along with the building permitting. So for the next 6 months, to complete these tasks, Mercy has informed the county that it will need to expend considerable funds. So these pre-development costs are extremely expensive, and as they go through that process, which would include mainly the architectural and engineering consultants, financial construction management, legal consultants, non-utility or non-county utility costs, additional studies and reports to get to that readiness. So these costs are estimated at $2 million, and those are in addition to the monies they've expended to date to get to this point, including getting to a site and development planning agreement with the building and planning department here at the county. So Mercy, in its evaluation of accepting the credit reservation, again for this Friday, has indicated to the county that Mercy is concerned with potential delays coming up. So these potential delays that may affect the timing and could have an effect on Mercy's ability to achieve TCAC readiness requirements. So Mercy has voiced concern in regard to carrying these pre-development costs. If Mercy is unable to obtain this round of tax credits, there will be some negative consequences along with that, with their ability to get other 9% loans in the future. Mercy has informed county staff that Mercy is prepared to expend the TCAC readiness costs and diligently proceed. However, if Mercy is unable to secure the current round of TCAC funding, the tax credits, to future, and they will have an inability to obtain future awards. Mercy has requested the county be responsible for TCAC readiness costs until Mercy has secured future funding. So should this occur, Mercy has informed staff that Mercy will continue to apply for project funding until they do find that funding, and at that point, the pre-development costs will be reimbursed to the county. So at this point, staff is recommending your board authorize the Director of Facilities Management to negotiate and execute an amendment to Mercy's current option, subject to county approval or council approval. And we've got 3 stipulated components that go along with that. So number 1, if after exercising commercially reasonably efforts to meet the TCAC readiness proceed requirements, and Mercy is unable to meet those requirements as a result of delays, one underlying delays there in implementation, the county agrees to remit to Mercy an amount up to the $2 million in those pre-development costs. And the county's temporary contributions shall not include funds associated with costs addressed in the project funding plan. So that's separate, as a separate item. Number 2, in the event county pays the county's temporary contribution to Mercy, Mercy agrees to actively pursue project financing for the potential project, and within 30 days of achieving that future funding, Mercy shall reimburse the county for the entire amount of county's temporary contribution. And number 3, as consideration for the county's temporary contribution, Mercy agrees to assign to county all of the contract rights, all of the work done, all the pre-development work done to date would be assigned back to the county. So for the purpose of assignment is to allow for use of Mercy's consultants, designs, and other pre-development efforts to be assigned back to the county for the county's use. Let's see, so Mercy does not obtain the necessary TCAC project financing through a subsequent funding round or has not exercised his option within the option term. So that would be the result. If they aren't able to get future financing, all of those resources, all of that effort would be given back to the county. So with that, just wanted to cover just a little bit of ground on the project and the progress to date. So just a few images here. So again, the site plan, just to orient you, the Placer County Government Center, Bell Road to the north, Professional Drive, so our 3-acre site is off of First Street. So this is, the right side is the master plan with its kind of delineation, and then this is existing conditions and how the location for the project would be placed. So we've reoriented in this site plan to show First Street along the top, Bell Road to the right, and a combination of 1, 2, 3-story buildings across the frontage with a community building, and then the apartment buildings fronting, and then a series of townhomes on First Street. Some of the elevations, the aesthetic, if you will, the look and feel of the project. This is one of the 3-story elevations for the apartment complex with the floor plans. So a combination of brick, plaster, lots of push and pull in the architecture to really bring that building to life. Townhomes, the 2-story townhomes, again with the same materials to blend in. And again, this project is the first one out of the gate to take advantage of the design guidelines and the standards that have been approved by your board. And then the community building with just a little bit more of articulation with the sloped roofs. And again, the push and pull in the architecture, the different colors, and the amount of window and fenestration that this will be there. Community building, which would include our HHS staff to service the programs that they're at the facility. So with that, I'll take questions. I do have with us today Jeff Riley from Mercy Housing, that if there are questions of him, that he would love to speak and is available.
Board members have questions. Supervisor Gore.
Just a quick question, Paul. Remind me how many units this is?
79 units, one which will be set aside for the manager of the facility. So it's a family-oriented facility, so we will have actually a fairly extensive mix of 1, 2, and a lot of 3-bedroom units. So the actual capacity is in the 100, 160s, kind of in that range for the amount of beds, if you will. So it's a family-oriented facility.
Includes the townhomes?
Includes the townhomes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, at this time, we'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Any members of the public want to address the board on this item prior to us considering action? And seeing none, we'll bring back to the board for discussion and possible action. So, is this something that is regular operating procedure in terms of requesting? I mean, Mercy has built affordable housing projects before this one. Do they typically ask for this type of reimbursement agreement?
No, typically not. It's mainly because of what could be the issues, things that could get in the way of the project as we get further down.
You can say it. We're being sued.
That's correct.
It's because the county is being sued in our effort to redevelop that area and include this affordable housing project in the redevelopment. We're being sued over this, and that litigation is not only costing us tremendous resources to defend in the litigation, but now we're being asked to be on the hook for an additional $2 million in our effort to bring affordable housing to the North Auburn area. You can say it.
That's correct. All of the above is correct.
You're not doing your job. Little inside humor. All right. Any of my colleagues have any other editorial comments they'd like to make? Supervisor Gore? Sorry. Or questions or anything?
No editorial comments. However, pleasantly surprised that the county received, or not county, but Mercy Housing received this tax credit, which we did not anticipate, which is huge for Placer County, right? Because that means that building could start in 6 months, pending litigation. Hopefully that gets taken care of and addressed quickly so that we can move forward and build 79 units of affordable housing for our community. That's terrific. So thank you to Mercy Housing. It's nice to, hopefully be able to move forward with this.
And just to add to that, that Mercy has until Friday to make that decision on receiving the tax credits. So this is just a piece of the puzzle to help with their decision making.
Great. Supervisor Gustafson?
Well, I want to ditto two of my counterparts on various comments they've made. Absolutely, congratulations to the whole team on what you've accomplished with that tax credit, and certainly ditto to Supervisor Euler on it's unfortunate that we're in litigation that causes anybody any concern, but I think based on everything we know, this is such a strong project and the community will support it. We need to move forward.
Supervisor Wygant?
I'll just throw my head into that same ring too, since Kirk set such a strong stage. Just want to point out that I've been on the board for 25 years in our county. In my view, has done extraordinarily good environmental review and has been very willing and successful in defending itself in that regard. So for that being on the record.
Thank you. Supervisor Holmes?
Ditto, and I make a motion that we approve the item.
Second.
We have a motion, Holmes, second, Wygant. Don't see anything budget related in terms of reallocate, so we don't need a roll call. So all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alrighty. A probation item. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Mueller, members of the board, Mr. Leopold, Ms. Schwab. I'm Chris Artem, and I'm the Fiscal and Administrative Manager for the Probation Department. I'm here today with Brian Passenheim, Probation's Alternative Sentencing Manager, to request renewed approval of the department's supplier contracts with our current vendors for electronic monitoring equipment. As you're aware, Probation uses two vendors, one for alcohol monitoring equipment and one for GPS monitoring. Monies for these two related contracts are flexibly allocated to allow the department, in concert with procurement, to move monies between the contracts when needed. Both vendors have been selected from a list of competitively awarded vendors available through the National Association of State Procurement Officials. In addition to approval to renew Probation's use of these vendors in the coming year, we're also requesting your approval to allow the procurement manager to authorize the continued use of these vendors for the following 2 years, as allowed by county procurement policy and assuming the availability of funding. The funding for next year's contract represents an increase of about $67,000 due to increases in offenders on formal probation using alternative sentencing to fulfill their sentence, as well as increases in offenders being ordered onto this equipment by the courts. At this point, I'm going to let Mr. Passenheim address some facts about the program with you.
Good morning, Chairman Euler, members of the board, Mr. Leopold, Ms. Schwab. Thank you for your time this morning. As Chris mentioned, I'm Brian Passenheim, the Alternative Sentencing Manager. I'd like to provide you a quick overview of the electronic monitoring program in 2018. During calendar year 2018, we supervised 1,337 offenders on the program. Therefore, we had a total of 1,197 jail sentences that were completed successfully. That equaled a 90% success rate on that program. There were 77,729 jail bed days that were avoided utilizing this program. Without the electronic monitoring supervision, Placer County would have needed approximately 213 additional jail beds per day in 2018. Therefore, we are here before you today requesting the following actions. Should I go through all three or one at a time?
Just go through all three, that's fine.
Thank you. Number one, approve the option to renew the agreements with Satellite Tracking of People LLC of Houston, Texas, and Scram Systems of San Diego, California, for the as-needed purchase of the electronic GPS and alcohol monitoring equipment and services using a competitively awarded National Association of State Procurement Officials Value Point Public Agency Cooperative Contract for a one-year period, an aggregate maximum of $762,000. Number two, approve the option to renew the resulting agreements on a year-to-year basis for the term of the respective National Association of State Procurement Officials Value Point Public Agency Cooperative Contract, not to extend beyond December 31st, 2020, and a maximum aggregate amount of $762,000 annually. And number three, authorize the purchasing manager to sign all required documents subject to department concurrence and available funding, and authorize change orders in the amount not to exceed $76,200 in aggregate, consistent with Placer County procurement's policy.
And if I can, just on item number two, that's to extend through December 2022, not 2020.
Okay. Thank you. All right, board members have any questions? Any members of the public have any questions or comments? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Second.
All right, we'll give the motion to Gustafson and the second to Wygant. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Thank you so much. We'll move on to the proposed revisions to our rules, policies, regulations, thou shalt not.
So, Department item B, to review and approve probation's electronic monitoring program policy, rules and regulations in accordance with Penal Code 1203.016D1 and Penal Code 1203.017D1. Each of you should have received a copy of the Alternative Sentencing Program intake packet. Placer County electronic monitoring program was developed to provide offenders the ability to serve their custody time in the community in lieu of our local facilities. The program provides cost-effective alternatives to incarceration, holds appropriately risked offenders accountable through intensive GPS supervision services, and allows appropriately risked offenders to continue their employment and or education while making payments to their court-ordered restitution. The program includes both voluntary and mandatory electronic monitoring specifically designed to hold offenders accountable and decrease a long-term jail overcrowding concern. This approach to managing criminal justice sentences has reduced early releases and decreased jail population. Further, electronic monitoring programs provide relief to the impacts of AB 109 while enhancing evidence-based practices among the offender population. In summary, this program provides accountability. Participants remain in their home unless they are at work, attending school, treatment, or attending a program like our PrEP program. This allows them to keep their employment and stay with their family. While they are on the program, we conduct frequent home visits and regular drug testing. This program, as mentioned, also does help manage the jail population, so we have the room to keep the correct people in jail. We are here before you today requesting the following actions. Review and approve probation's electronic monitoring program policy, rules, and regulations in accordance with Penal Code 1203.016D1 and Penal Code 1203.017D1. Thank you.
So what is driving this action today? Is there a change that you are suggesting, or do we have to occasionally review and approve these?
Yeah, they occasionally have to be brought before the board to be approved.
Okay. So they were getting a little stale, and we just had to put our stamp on them one more time. Is that
Correct.
So that you're not proposing any modifications to the rules as currently?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Questions or comments by board members? Seeing none, members of the public, what's the pleasure of the board? Motion Wygant, second Holmes. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you very much, Brian. All right, Public Works. Woohoo! You realize that you have the last item of the year, other than closed session, of course. I'm not discounting
Hey,
anything.
all right.
But you have the last item.
Then it's an honor and a pleasure.
Yes.
As usual.
Yes.
Okay, Kevin Tabor, Department of Public Works. I'm the engineering manager for the Road Maintenance Division. So this next item is 3 actions. The first is to approve negotiated purchase orders with Riverview International Trucks and Wausau Equipment Company. Both are utilizing piggybacking opportunities. Riverview International will piggyback on the State of California contract number 1-18-23-20F, and with Wausau Equipment Company will utilize a Sourcewell contract number 080818-WAS. And this is for the purchase of 4 multi-use dump trucks. And the aggregate amount of the 2 purchase orders will be $1,047,679. The second action requested is approving a budget revision, shifting $43,000 from ledger account 54450. No, from excuse me, yeah, from 54450 to no, excuse me, I've got that backwards. From 52,530 to 54,450. Easy for me to say. And then finally, the third action requested is authorizing the purchase manager to sign the required documents. So with the approval of the 1920 budget, you also approved the purchase of these 4 trucks in the master fixed asset list. So these are going to be multi-use trucks, primarily as plow trucks, but with the multi-use, we're going to employ a hook loader system. So all 4 trucks will have front plows on them that we'll put into use plowing snow in the Tahoe Basin, as well as stationed out of the Colfax yard. But with this hook loader system, we can add extra implements as time goes on. Spray beds, water trucks, chip bed trucks. But with 2 of these trucks, we're also, and this is the Wausau purchase order, we're requesting to purchase brine and sand spreaders. So those 2 brine and sand spreaders will go on the Tahoe plow dump trucks. So with these 4 trucks and using that being multi-purpose, we'll be able to get rid of at least 6 existing trucks that are on our fleet. So we're looking to get a little bit leaner and meaner and try and have year-round use of these pieces of equipment. So the first purchase order for Riverview International is in the amount of $891,791. The second purchase order with Wausau is in the amount of $155,888. So the use of these negotiated contracts of piggybacking opportunities is in accordance with the Procurement Purchasing Policy Manual, Section 3.5A, and Brett Wood is here in the audience if you have any questions in that regard. And with that, I will turn it over to your board if you have any questions. Oh, one other thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out Sierra Garcia and Colby Weiss in the audience. They're with the Fleet Services Division, and basically they did all the legwork on putting this together and getting our fleet moving in the right direction. So,
great. Supervisor Holmes.
So did you say we're reducing the fleet by there's 6 trucks that we're taking out of service and then
6
more? So does that lower our carbon footprint?
Yes.
Good answer.
Definitely. Yeah, carb regulations are definitely one consideration, but being able to get rid of some older pieces of equipment, that's another major consideration as well.
Supervisor Gustafson.
Well, Supervisor Holmes asked one of my questions. The second one is, when we surplus equipment, do we offer to fellow public agencies first, or do we just surplus in general, these older vehicles?
Typically what happens is we just surplus them. Procurement division also handles
Yeah.
that. If there is any value and no strings attached, such as air pollution considerations, they go on the auction block and highest bidder.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments by board members? Anybody in the public? Okay, we're being asked to award the negotiated purchase orders, to approve a budget revision and authorize the signatures. What's the pleasure of the board?
Second.
We'll give the motion to Gustafson and the second to Holmes. How's that? Oh, was it Bonnie? I'm sorry. See, that happens when I don't look. All right, motion to Gore and second to Holmes. How about that? Everybody good with that? Okay, we need a roll call, please.
Gore? Wygant? Holmes? Gustafson? Bueller?
Thank you so much. All right, well.
Thank you.
we'll go
Merry
into,
Christmas, everyone.
Thank you, same to you. We will take up our remaining county council items in closed session.
The board will now adjourn to closed sessions to consider one item of anticipated litigation, one item of labor negotiations. The board will then adjourn as the Board of Supervisors and reconvene as the Placer County Successor Agency to consider two items of real estate property.
Is right there in, what's the county? It starts with a C. Canyon County. Ada County is Meridian, that's the line. Okay. Yeah, it's Canyon County.
There's a Nazarene school there. Yeah.
All right.
Are we ready?
Yes. We are back. I'll go ahead and turn on my own mic. The guys in the back did it for me. We are back from closed session and council will report out.
The board met in closed session to consider one item of anticipated litigation. The board heard a report and provided direction. The board then had a conference with labor negotiators and provided direction. The board then adjourned as the Placer County Board of Supervisors and convened as the Placer County Successor Agency. The Successor Agency Board considered two items of real property negotiations and for both gave direction. The board then adjourned as the Placer County Successor Agency and reconvened as the Placer County Board of Supervisors. This concludes report out of closed session.
All right. Well, there being no other items before our board for 2019, we will adjourn to our first meeting of next year in order to welcome in our new chair, Gore. And with that, I wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we are adjourned.